Welcome to the Boom Project YouTube channel. The Boom Project, as you can see here, is a book subtitled Voices of a Generation, and it is an anthology of poetry and prose written by people who live along the Ohio River Valley or have lived along the Ohio River Valley at some time in their lives. And we are so pleased today to have Lennie Hay with us, who is a poet featured in our book. And she's going to do some reading for us and tell us about her writing life and maybe her writing craft secrets, who really knows. So let me tell you a little bit about her. Lennie Hay is a 2019 MFA graduate of Spalding University in Louisville, Kentucky, which is actually where we are located today. She grew up in the Midwest between two cultures, Chinese American and Russian German farmers. She now lives in Kentucky and Florida, drawing energy from visual art, her family story, travel, and music. Lennie's work has been published in various national and international journals: Trajectory, Odet, Literary Leo, Beats, the Shanghai Literary Review, Harts Minds, Uproot, Bryant Literary Review, Literary Accents, Heartland Review, the Literary Roundtable, as well as in a 2019 anthology, The Boom Project, Voices of a Generation. So welcome, Lennie, to the Boom Project YouTube channel.
Greetings, Kim and Bonnie. I was very honored to be included in the anthology, and I'm honored to join you today. I will begin by reading a poem that was published winter spring this year in Literary Leo, and I'll read it. I'm going to say just a few things. I'll read it and then we can talk about it any that you want. The title is An Accounting, and it opens with an epigraph taken from the New York Times, some lines, and it's written in 2 columns, and I'm going to read it. It can be read in 3 ways. And I'll read it, it's short, in all 3 ways. You won't be able to read this, but there are 2 columns. I'll read each column down, and then it reads across. And I'll talk a little bit about the form after I read. An accounting. They're going to kill me, man, Mr. Floyd said. Takes a heck of a lot of oxygen to say that, Mr. Chauvin replied nonchalantly. From July 18, 2020, New York Times article. 46 years old, 16,790 day life, extinguished. 6'4" man, stretched on an autopsy table. $20 crime. 2,000 pennies in question. 1 man against blue power. 1 man can't breathe, can't breathe, can't breathe. 1 man didn't count. A country holds its breath. 44 years young. 16,060 days and more to live inside. Shatters with 19 years of authority. Knows brutality. $1 million retirement hangs in the balance. 3 complicit colleagues. 1 uniform presses, wait of 8 minutes. Justice doesn't figure, can't breathe. 46 years old, 44 years young. 16,790 day life. 16,060 days and more to live, extinguished inside. 6'4" man shatters with 19 years of authority. Stretched on an autopsy table, knows brutality. $20 crime, $1 million retirement, 2,000 pennies in question, hangs in the balance. One man against blue power, 3 complicit colleagues. One man can't breathe, 1 uniform presses, can't breathe, presses, can't breathe, wait of 8 minutes. One man didn't count, justice doesn't figure. A country holds its breath, can't breathe.
Wow. Wow. Okay, before you go on, I'm gonna, I guess I'm so interested in how you wrote that poem and your decisions about the 2 sides, because I love the way they work apart and together.
Well, the form is called contrapuntal, you know, and if, you know, you probably know from music, counterpoint or contrapuntal music has independent melody lines that join. And I didn't start out deciding to write it this way. I needed to write this poem. I wanted to write it. But like some other poems I've written, and my teachers and mentors have helped me figure this out, that sometimes when you feel particularly strong emotion about something, trying a formal structure can be useful, because the constraint lets things happen and kind of disciplines all that's going on within you. So, you know, I got some stuff out last summer about what had happened to Minneapolis. I grew up, well, part of the time in Minnesota. And so I was feeling attached to place and all what was going on, all that was going on there. And I struggled with it and struggled with it. And then recalled several years ago, probably 10, I did a workshop with a poet named Taya Himba Jess, who subsequently actually won the Pulitzer for his book, Olio. And he wrote a lot about poetry, did documentary poetry, but also was really innovative with form and the visual form on the page. And he's written several contrapuntal poems. So I thought, these are 2 men, close in age, you know, coming from different lives, but joined in this horrible tragedy and murder. And so it seemed to make sense to me to let 2 voices be joined in this way. And you know, it was a struggle. It was all summer in the writing and then revising after that. But anyway, that's, does that tell you what you?
Yes, since neither of us are poets, it's really engaging and interesting how that came about.
Yeah.
Bonnie, do you have any additional questions of Lennie before she moves on to her next?
Yes, I would like you to repeat the name of the poet that you were mentioning.
Yes, Taya Himba Jess. Last name is Jesse. And I'm turning because he's probably right behind me. Yeah, it's just Jess. And Taya Himba is Tehimba, Jess.
That was a powerful poem.
Thank you. Thank you.
Impactful.
Now, Lennie, I happen to know you won a prize.
Yeah, I was.
Tell us about the prize that poem won. You won.
Well, I was honored. An independent weekly newspaper in Louisville does an annual literary edition, and they put out a call for photography, prose, and poetry. And I submitted this and I won first prize in
Yay.
poetry.
Well,
So I was,
congratulations. I can certainly see why.
thank you.
Very,
Thank you.
very nice. Thank
Yeah.
you very much. Okay, what have you got next for us?
Well, my next one, the title is American Politeness. And I chose it because I'm not reading from, I have a whole collection of poems. The big manuscript is entitled Lost in America. And then I have pulled out some from it. Those volumes have not been published. I hope someday they will be. But they really explore kind of how I grew up on this fault line between cultures, and what it was like mid 20th century, growing up mixed and growing up Chinese, part Chinese, in the middle of this country. And I say the middle of this country because probably on the coast it would have been a very different experience. But I explore that. I explore my parents' life, the history. I did a lot of research, but I'm not reading any of those today. And I'm not sure why. But I chose this one, which is most recent and hasn't been published, and grew out of some of what was happening in our country regarding Asian Americans attacked. And it reminded me, I'd never been the object of violence, but I have had many experiences of being treated as the other. And so that's what where this poem came from this summer, in that context with my experiences. American politeness. May I ask a personal question, they say? I am weary of strangers' assumed right to know me. My weight, religious preference, sexual orientation. I chuckle silently, weighing an answer this time. Raised too docile, I smile, yes. Where are you from? Always the follow-up. Their false politeness prompts my answers, meant to confuse. Minot, Crookston, Minneapolis, then Louisville, places I grew up, got educated, learned how fellow citizens position me outside their American landscape, try to pin me on a map in a foreign place for those who have silky black hair and eyes like mine. I persist in naivete. My interrogators squirm in confusion and discomfort. They hope that those who look like me took a boat here or flew adopted to the land of the free. But I acquiesce as if I did not speak their language. Oh, you mean, what is my ethnicity? My father immigrated from China. My mother was the daughter of German-Russian immigrants. I was born on the plains of North Dakota, near wheat fields and under endless skies. I hope they feel my words like a slammed door, like a gut punch.
Whoa. Wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Was there a particular incident that inspired that one?
No, I
It
just
was-
have lots of memories.
Yeah, and
And-
connected to the abuse of Asians in the country.
Well, that's what got me thinking about it.
Yeah.
You know, because this is, it was always indicative to me of an assumed right to information about me because I was other, I looked other. And And probably those memories are more from the 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe into the 80s than they are today. And I like to think our society looks different, much more different than it did then. Responses are not always, gracious and embracing of others. But I think, as I said, growing up in the Midwest and looking like I did, in the midst of lots of Scandinavians.
It's very homogenous. Yes.
Yeah.
It occurs to me in listening to you, because your poems also have a cultural message. They're not about the butterflies flittering among the acacia trees or anything. I'll make that up sometime. But anyhow, I think perhaps poetry, and I'm wondering what you think about this, poetry might be the best form to convey those sorts of thoughts and experiences.
Well, as a poet, and for myself, of course, I agree. And probably because it's compressed. And if poets succeed, what happens is explosive in terms of insightful or, thought-provoking. But I also read a lot of fiction, and story is really important to me. So I think I wouldn't say, it's the best way, but I think it has a very important place. And I'm excited about these times in poetry. I was just talking to an old former student of mine, and we were talking about hanging out with younger people. And, in my studies recently, that's been the case. And one of the things I love is because not only do they push me to see forms different than what I was, grew up reading, but performance poetry has kind of rocked my world, and I think shown society how poetry can communicate in such an immediate way, in such a powerful, strong way. And I love that. So I don't know.
Okay, I love that. That's great. Oh, Bonnie, do you have another question about that poem, or that comes from that poem, before she reads her next?
Well, I think that both of the poems carry story and a context that is not prescriptive, but it certainly is provocative and makes the audience consider more than the butterflies and the rainbows, which I happen to.
There's a place for butterflies.
Which I happen to love, but I really like the lack of dogmatism and that sense of community that you bring the reader into with you.
Thank you. That's important. Yeah.
And a part of this, of course, is the provocative part, is that there are people in your audiences who will feel uncomfortable because there's some recognition. And I think that's important too. I've always felt that was one of poetry's jobs, important jobs, is to make the person, fidget a bit in their seat, or fidget in their mind anyhow.
Yes.
Okay, we're enjoying this. What have you got for us next?
Okay. This is different in tone and mood. But again, I didn't choose it for this reason, but I realized it after I decided this was going to be one of the poems I read. It has a form. It's a formal structure. It's a villanelle. 19 lines, 5 tercets, 3-line stanzas, and then a quatrain, and there's a rhyme pattern. And again, this was an extremely emotional experience, and I probably worked on this poem off and on for 3 years, and finally got it to where I was I could set it aside. And I haven't made any more changes recently. You know, poets are, you can't stop. You just keep doing it. So anyway, and this one has been published. In fact, it won a second prize in the Joy Bale Boone Poetry Prize and was published in the Heartland Review in 2020. And it's called At the Green Easel. She paints her way through days of grape leaf tangles, faces a tilted view from a crooked porch angle. I knelt beside her on sand where his body lay. Hidden behind green branches near a hungry gulf, she speaks slow words about the water's incessant pulse. She paints her way through grape leaf tangles. I sit near and hear of his 40-year touch. She paints herself Gulf blue, beach brown, olive blush. I knelt where his body lay. 4 o'clock waves flung him hard and low. Beneath her unfinished painting, he drowned 2 years ago.
Wow.
She paints her way through grape leaf tangles. Beyond her watch, her artist's hands, the surf bloomed. She knocked over canvas and easel, ran into the blue. I knelt beside her on sand where his body lay. Spears of green leaves frame her mourning, circle the cottage, block surf spray and neighbors. She paints her way through days of grape leaf tangles. I knelt beside her on rough sand where his body lay.
Whoa. Whoa. Bonnie, I'm going to let you ask the first question.
Well, I'm kind of
Or reaction, you can.
my reaction was palpable. I mean, it was almost tangible. The idea and the repetition of the grape leaf tangles really says so much about a tragic situation. It begins with this almost pastoral sense of the green paint and the painter. So I was not necessarily expecting what occurred throughout, which made it that much more of beauty to hear. It was just incredibly lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, I love villanelles. I can't, there's no way I could, well, it would take, I wouldn't know what to do with one, but I absolutely love listening to them and reading them because of that repetition. So tell me, when you start to write a villanelle, do you start with one of those repeating lines in your head?
No, that's not where I started. The repeating line grew out of, you know, what I was writing. And then it was like, well, this would be, you know, the line that could be repeated. And as I said, I worked on it so long, it's hard for me to remember the beginning, but the title was early on. The initial scene, you know, of the woman at the easel was there. And the probably the last changes I made were to do some of the slant rhyme, some of the close rhyme, because I don't typically, occasionally I do a little rhyme, but I was nervous about that. And had to try it out on some poet friends, and that was those were some of the last changes I made.
Really something. Really something.
You know, this has made me think, because I read that contrapuntal poem and then this villanelle. And, you know, when I think about, you know, the kind of the essence of poetry and how I approach it, I guess what I would say is that my poems begin in revision. What I start with is not a poem. It really isn't. I want it to be, but it's not.
I like that so much.
Is it the story? Do you start with the story? I'm not sure.
Sometimes I start with the story if the narrative is what brings me to write something. Sometimes I write a lot about water, and I didn't even realize that. I mean, as I live by water in Florida and here, and I grew up in Minnesota, and lakes and rivers were so important. So sometimes I start with an image or something I see on the water, near the water, and then shape, and it grows from there. So I don't know.
Maybe grows from an image or a story.
Yes.
Or
yes.
just an inspiration.
Yes.
Wonderful. I love that. Well, now I'm curious do you have something else to say?
No.
We'll give you a chance to say things. But all three of those poems, so different from each other and so beautiful and thought-provoking. This At the Green Easel, we never really know the details, obviously. We know that someone drowned and that the speaker's kneeling where his body lay. And the painter is making her way through grape leaf tangles. I didn't write that down. But there's so much there that conveys the grief and the sadness, and without it even being, without that being said. And so it's just powerful, really powerful.
Thank you.
All of them. But tell us a little bit about your writing journey, Lennie. Did you always want to be a writer?
Yes, but I took, different, junctures took me different places. I can remember, it was really arrogant and it didn't go very well, but around 10 years old, I thought I'd write a novel. I always read a lot, and I wanted to write a novel. And I remember starting to write it, and I used a typewriter then. And I kind of quit after like what I thought was a chapter, because I thought, oh my gosh, I can't do this. I can't do this. I also remember putting together plays with friends, and we put them on in school, but I was I kind of did I don't remember writing down the script, but I directed everyone. I was kind of a boss people. And we did that. And then in high school, I wanted to write poetry. I discovered, not in school, I loved English class in school, but we didn't read E.E. Cummings in high school, nor Lawrence Ferlinghetti, but I discovered them on my own. And it was a whole new world of poetry to me. And so I tried to use poetry kind of as an outlet for what you're experiencing as a teenager. And I never shared it with anybody. I like to say I was a closet poet, because I didn't know anyone who was a poet. And I didn't think just ordinary people could be poets. And I kept trying to write some in my 20s when I was a young teacher. I tried to write. I sought out a writing group. I sought out a mentor. But it was really, really hard. Teaching was very exhausting.
Yes.
And the intellectual energy and emotional energy. So it was on the back burner. And over the years, I wrote a lot of different things. I did occasional poems when I was a principal. you know, to honor a teacher, or, you know,
Oh.
at the end of the school year, I would do occasional poems. But I did not write with any kind of discipline, but I wanted to learn. And so I went to workshops and decided that it wasn't enough. I was learning what I didn't know and what I wanted to know about craft, but I wanted more continuous support, instruction, and a network of folks. And so I have found groups over the years. And since I finished at Spalding, and I mean, what has been really satisfying has been both a Zoom poets discussion group I'm a part of, and we monthly send a poem, discuss it, each poem in the session. It's a small group. And then I was in another group where we just did manuscript, you know, commentary, and that was good too. I learned a lot, but I like the face-to-face.
Yeah.
And I have a writing friend in Louisville, and we, you know, get together regularly and read what we're doing. So that's very, very important to me. I think I said out loud I was a poet probably not until like 15 years ago.
Excellent.
So
Now, you say you were a teacher and a principal. What kind of what did you teach? And
I taught English
okay.
mostly, and then reading and humanities. And I was principal at a K-12 school, a public school. And so that was a wonderful experience. And I guess another experience I should mention in my journey is that I was in the first class or group of the Louisville Writing Project for teachers. And it was a partnership with the University of Louisville and the Jefferson County schools at that time. It's morphed and evolved over time. But not only were we learning current theory about writing instruction, we wrote every day, and we shared our writing. And that was a very good, a kind of bringing me along from earlier days to where I am. And I taught high school, and I didn't do it every assignment. When I gave my students an assignment, a writing assignment, and this is probably before my babies were born, but I wrote it also, just to see if the assignment worked, you know, and I did it. I didn't show the kids, but I told them, you know, I
hope
did
you kept some of those original pieces. No. That's a pity. Now, Bonnie, do you have any questions for Lennie right now?
No, I'm good. Let's go on.
Okay,
I mean, I can listen to you talk about your process, and especially the development of poetry. And Kim and I have both taught as well. We find that I find that teaching takes a lot of creative energy in addition to the energies that you mentioned. So it sometimes you're just drained of that creative energy at the end of a school week or day or hour.
Or 2.5. Yeah, any time, especially with writers. But anyhow, I love these writing journey stories. And we're hearing lots of different stories from all of our writers, none of whom I don't think we've interviewed anybody yet, Bonnie, have we, who's been in the writing profession for their career. So many other careers.
Yeah. In my last job as a consultant, one of the things I did a lot of writing. I created a lot of materials to use with our clients. But one of the things I love to do, and I think it was productive, was I would write scenarios. They were not real school situations, but they were particular based on my experiences. So they were like fiction. It was like writing these stories about classrooms and principals and schools and superintendents. And then the people with whom we worked did analysis and problem solving and tried to apply theories we were teaching them about to these situations. So I really, really enjoyed that. And that's when I mean, I realized that writing was kind of how I breathed and lived. So
yeah, good. Oh, that's good. Now, do you have any, like, we always ask people about their writing process and their writing secrets, that is craft secrets. The way that you approach writing that you think might be different from others.
You know, probably not so different than others. A couple of things, you know, I've learned from others, and that is I found the best time of day for me to write. I am a morning person. Doesn't mean I always write first thing, but before noon, I mean, definitely. Also, if I don't have, if I'm not into a subject matter particularly or have an idea, I will use a piece of art and, you know, and respond to it. And I've gotten, I really, really believe what I said. And so I keep all my early drafts of things. And so a lot of what I do is revising, you know, and pulling those and working them. And I guess, you know, I don't think those are really unique things, but that's, you know, kind of how I go about it. So I'm very visual. And so not only art, but photos. I did that when I wrote about my family. You know, I went to photos of things. Oh, and I love to research. In fact, sometimes I think, oh, your research is an excuse for not. So I do love to look up information about things I'm interested in writing about. And
you find that working its way into your poetry?
Yes, 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 absolutely. And then I do that, you know, and writing about my family in some ways became a kind of documentary poetry because I learned things, especially about my father's side of the family, about the history of Chinese in the early 20th century. Well, at the turn of from the 19th to the 20th century and on in, that I didn't know. My father died when I was a teenager, so I didn't have him as a source when I was an adult. So a lot of it's been research. And so, yes, that got pulled in and it kind of filled holes in what I remembered as a child. The information did, you know, it was like, oh, that makes sense because, you know.
So it sounds like genealogical research or research.
Some of it, yes, yes.
Immigration.
Yeah. Yes.
Is that all? Is that in your book, Lost in America? Your manuscript soon to be published by someone?
I hope. No, not yet. No, not yet. I hope.
No, you make sure we know when it is.
You will. You will. The whole world.
We have one question that we try to ask all of our writers, and that is, if you have a short writing mantra or writing philosophy, 6 words to describe.
Well, what I said earlier, you know, about my poems begin in revision.
Okay.
I use that to remind myself. And then a one-word thing I speak to myself frequently is compress. Compress. Which means get rid of. Is it necessary? Okay. Why is that there? bias that word there. So
Well, that is applicable to prose, but it's very, very important to poetry, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
So,
yes.
okay, well, I wrote that poems begin in revision. I thought, wow, that's so important for writers to think about in all genres.
Hmm.
Yes, for definitely. Well, Bonnie, do you want to wrap it up with any comments or questions?
Well, this has been so enlightening and enjoyable, and we appreciate your time and sharing your writing with us. It really elevates, I think, the notion of community, because each poem dealt with community in some different aspect,
Mhm.
and the connections that we as human beings feel or need to feel for one another. So thank you for that, and thank you for
Oh.
being here.
Yes.
Thank you. I love what you said. I appreciate it.
Well, now, Lennie Hay, is there a place on the web where people can find you or your poems?
No, I thought a lot that I need to create an author page. So I need to figure out how to do that.
Okay. Are any of these 3 poems online? You don't have to give the link, but just the names of the poems.
No,
Okay.
I don't. Well, I don't know. The At the Green Easel was published in the Heartland Review, and that's hard copy. So I'm not even sure if it's what's online with it. And an accounting was online, appeared online from Literary Leo, but wasn't, what's the word I want? Wasn't blocked on the page as it was in print.
Right.
So anyway.
Right. So, well, you might want to look for accounting in Literary Leo. That's capital L, capital E, capital O. And again, we are the Boom Project book co-editors. And you can find us also on our webpage, which is theboomprojectbook.com. And we're always hoping that you're watching this and that you'll like us or follow, subscribe. That's what it is. So we are 3 boomers here acquainting ourselves with the language that is, which we are immigrants. We are digital immigrants, all of us.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you so much for improving this day for us.
Kim and Bonnie, thank you very much.
Right.